I see there's 20 people here, so
Mhm.
today is exciting. Alex is going to do a great presentation on Perception Neuron Studio,
Studio.
which is our latest and best. And really, and then we're not kidding. This is a really really good product. It's completely different than anything that we've done before.
Hmm.
In terms of, and this is why he's going to spend quite a bit of time today kind of going through the process, because if you think you know how to use Perception Neuron 2.0, and if you think you know how to use Perception Neuron Pro, then you really need to change kind of the way you go through the whole procedure from beginning to end, and you will get amazing mocap, and dare I say maybe some of the best mocap for inertial based sensors.
Hmm.
That might upset our competitors, but it's the team that behind this, the all the research that's been done with this is really delivered something that is one of the best products I've seen out there. So
Yeah.
that said, I am passing it on to Alex.
Awesome.
And then you can introduce everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Rock. So yeah, we're going to be going over Perception Neuron Studio here. And so Rock was just speaking, and I'm joined by a lovely SF panelist, Rock and Daniel in Miami, Ari and James in LA, and of course I am Alex over here and working from home. We have partners over the world. In case you guys have any questions on purchasing, demos, or even support, please feel free to reach out to these guys. They're awesome and amazing. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. What Rock had mentioned, yes, Studio. It's a better way to mocap. So everything here is completely different, redesigned from the inside out. And so when Rock says that if you're familiar with the older systems, you really have to kind of change your mentality into going how you're going to be operating with Perception Neuron Studio. The reason for that is even for ourselves, I'm so used to kind of the simplicity of grabbing the system, just turning it on, working with it right away. There are some steps that you need to take prior to that when you're using the Perception Neuron Studio to give you the best quality mocap, in any scenario that you guys are going through. So today we're going to be going through the hardware, basic setup, software, and capture. Are really important keys in terms of everything that we're going to be going through. So number one, what comes in your kit, right? So we briefly touched on this last episode, and what's inside of your Perception Neuron Studio kit is you're going to have 17 sensors. This is going to be your full body inertial. You're going to have the charging case for it, one spare that you use, the full body straps, a single transceiver, which is what comes in every single kit, the USB antenna because it is able to work either USB mode or PoE, the power adapter to charge, and the travel case, which is a Pelican case, which also conveniently stores your gloves in case you need. So the gloves are an accessory. You could purchase those at any time or add them on at any point, that you're not obligated to use them. Just in the case that you guys want to start adding finger capture, you can obviously add those when you need. And of course, a big thing for us has always been our software. And our Access Studio software, our capture software, is available for free, downloadable on the website right now if you guys wanted to try out how that workflow looks like, what the data looks like. But we're actually doing something really important, and we're going to be transitioning to USB dongles hopefully later this month. The reason that we're going to be doing that is because right under that we talk about Access Studio Advanced and Access Studio Hybrid. These are actually going to be key components that are going to be modular, that are going to be able to be easily integrated into these USB dongles. So in case somebody wants to add hybrid motion capture, or they want to add some of the new features and functions that are going to be adding on later out throughout the year, you can easily upgrade those. We don't have a release price point. We don't have a release date on these the rest of this information, but just know that these are things that you're going to be able to upgrade at any point that you want. We're really trying to make an effort to update the firmware as constantly and consistently as possible, and just know if you're using the regular Access Studio, you still are going to have the same capabilities as the most advanced, aside from the key components that we're talking about, like hybrid motion capture. So I'm already kind of introducing you to what we're going to be talking about. And of course, the groundbreaking news is Perception Neuron Studio. The new tech, the new features, the new software. This is really where we're kind of making new strides and kind of at least in my personal opinion, really leaving the rest of the competition behind. And the key component to that is our new algorithm. So if you're familiar with Perception Neuron 32 and Perception Neuron Pro, I think we were already one of the best in terms of doing the full body IK. That means that if someone was bending down, touching their toes, if they're bending backwards, if they're running around, those steps and movements, that sort of the body skeleton was one of the best, and we've only improved upon that, and this is a brand new algorithm for that. So anytime that you're capturing, anytime that you're walking, anytime that you're running, doing high dynamic movement, this new algorithm is excellent for that. And this has been a staple of the new software, of the new system in general. And so this is one of the key components in terms of when we're talking about the advancements on Perception Neuron Studio. This is what we're talking about. Aside from that, we're going back to capturing 5 performers on the same time. We weren't able to do that on Perception Neuron Pro. You had a limitation of transceivers, of transmission, as well as doing things on the Perception Neuron 32, where you were able to do things, wireless network. Here, we're really bringing back the foundation of being able to capture 5 people simultaneously at the same time. Of course, we're now able to capture up to 5.5 hours autonomously. You could, if you're going into sleep mode or anything like that, you could probably last longer, but 5.5 hours autonomously is, pretty much a full day of capture. Upon the improvements that we've done, each of these sensors has excellent magnetic resistance. And I know that's probably just a word that, hard to quantify, but we've really done an amazing job in terms of the shielding, the magnetic awareness, in terms of environment. So, for example, we've done things in Japan. I've done on stage shows. Ari has gone with keyboards, with guitarists. He's put this suit to the test in environments that are less than ideal, and somewhere that you would think would be very chaotic. And the sensors have held up quite impressively, so much so that even for ourselves, this is, taking above and beyond the steps that you've been able to capture on the previous iterations of our systems. System charges in 1.5 hours, just a quick recharge in terms of what you guys are doing. When you are using the pure inertial system, again, Perception Neuron Studio inertial, that's a 17 sensor set, you're able to capture anywhere from 60 to 240 frames per second. So the reason for that flexibility is you go into software, change, you could dynamically adjust. And when we're doing this is actually quite important when we're talking about hybrid, that you could actually match the camera frame rate of the optical system that you're using. Mentioned that you get 1 transceiver with your kit that captures 7 meters omnidirectional. And when you're mesh networking, this is actually, say, unlimited, but you're basically using as many of these antennas, these transceivers. I have them here, right? So you guys can kind of see what's there. You use either USB or PoE. This enables you to kind of increase the range, the capture volume that you guys are going to be using. Inside of the sensors, this is the first time that we've done this as well. We have dual sensors inside of those Perception Neuron Studio sensors. It's going to allow you to capture high dynamic movement as well as low dynamic movement. And we actually have an example of this later on where we're doing flips and stunts and what that data looks like. If you try to do these things before, or even with other systems, you're probably not going to get as good a quality data. So we're actually measuring, what these intense movements look like, as well as really low dynamic movement, something really, gentle like ballet, for example. Now, really important is that this system is modular, expandable. So I'm talking about adding those hybrid components, optical cameras, hybrid trackers, and the gloves. So you have the flexibility of adding these things on at any point that you want, as well as with the software, right? All these different components that you can adjust. So you have your base package, and then you have all these different components that allow you to really enhance the performance and capture and even the experience that you guys are going to be using. Now, coming soon, we're going to be talking about the hybrid trackers. So this is actually something that we're going to be unveiling later on in the year. And what we're going to, actually not even later on in the year, probably in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be showing you a demo from within our studio of what this looks like. And really the important thing with this is now it allows you to do things like virtual production, creating your own holodecks, training and simulation, creating that optical, not even optical, that absolute positional tracking that you guys, that's probably been the only thing lacking within our systems. Now you're able to get that one-to-one relation when you're holding up a virtual camera, or holding up a virtual prop, or even a real prop, trying to do something with 2 people, whether it's dancing, moving around, holding things in their hands. Now you're able to get that fidelity and one-to-one relation with our new hybrid optical solution. and again, expandable to Perception Neuron Studio. Now, the gloves, because again, we're talking about the modularity, the gloves are easily integrated with the whole solution. So you don't have to have any outside practice in terms of what you don't have any USB dongles to worry about. You don't have to worry about third-party providers paying for different licenses. All this is directly integrated into Access Studio. The Studio gloves, we have flexible sizing, so you are able to get them in small, medium, and large. We haven't had any issues in terms of glove sizing, and our most popular size to date, as far as I know, is our medium. Now, the gloves have 6 sensors inside. That's 2 on the thumb and 1 for the rest of the fingers. So you're essentially getting 2 degrees of freedom on your thumb and 1 for the rest of the fingers. Now, again, same as with the with the inertial tracking, with the Studio Inertial, you're getting magnetic resistance with these. I would not advise this, but I have tried it and I've seen it. I could pick up my phone, I could go to a computer. I've seen it working, quite well. Although, you always want to try to have an operator with you to make sure that you limit that interaction with magnetic fields.
Alex, you remember? Let me just interject here. You remember when we were doing the capture session with Jake Kodish? And he was dancing at the music studio, and he was fully suited up with the Perception Neuron Studio with gloves, and then he went over and stood right next to the speaker and started changing the songs on his iPhone.
Yeah,
I had a panic attack, and you told me to just calm down. The performer finished setting up his track list, and then went back out and continued dancing, and the suit performed perfectly without having to do another calibration. That's the first time that I was really, really impressed with the new technology.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, just the way Alex mentioned, we don't recommend you.
Yeah, don't do that. Always
just because we're saying it doesn't mean it will work 100% of the time. It's still affected by strong magnetic field. It's still affected by magnetic field, just like any inertial system.
Exactly. Yeah, you always want to limit that. You want to make sure that you have, best practice is to have someone with you to make sure that you're monitoring and making sure that you guys are staying away from magnetic fields. Again, we've done these improvements on the hardware, but always maintaining best practice is the way that you're going to get the best quality mocap overall. Going back to the improvements that we've done with the glove, we've improved the data tracking. And what that means is that if you're familiar with our Perception Neuron 32, or even if you're familiar with the Hi5 gloves, we've really taken that data and we've really kind of almost, I wouldn't call it machine learning, but we've learned through experience, and we've kind of improved the data tracking that you're getting out of the gloves. Much better fidelity, much better finger movement. You're still not getting finger spread, but we are going to be adding, again, in these firmware updates, the ability to have more precise tracking. And by we're doing that is we're doing calibrations that will improve the performance of the capture of the gloves. When you're using the gloves in conjunction with the Perception Neuron Studio Inertial suit, you're going to be limited to using FPS of 60 to 100. The reason for that is just the amount of data that's being transmitted over the network. And in that scenario, you're only going to be able to get from 60 to 100. Again, when you're using the pure Perception Studio Inertial, just the 17 sensors, you could go up to 240. Again, a nice thing with the gloves is you could just easily replace the battery, AA, swap them out at any point that you need, and continue your capture, so there's no downtime in terms of what you guys are going to be doing. And the biggest one of the major visual things that we've changed is our UI. And our Access Studio UI is brand new. It has brand new indicators, a brand new way of kind of looking at what you guys are going to be doing. And the first thing with that is the real-time magnetic level indicator. And you'll see this a lot better when we're going into the capture space. But here, as if you guys can see my mouse, I'm kind of hovering over where the magnetic tab is. And so in real time, as you guys either walk around while you have the suit on, or when you're doing your compass calibration, your environment awareness, these things are going to change in real time. And you obviously want to try to stay in the best possible space that you need. And that's going to give you the best capture possible. We also have battery life indicators. So now you actually have an awareness of when you guys need to swap your batteries out, when you need to charge, if you need to put them into sleep mode, what's the longest way for you guys to maintain battery life. You have that indicator there. And this is super vital, which is the signal integrity. Again, you're going to have one antenna come with your suit, and you want to make sure that you maximize the coverage of that single antenna, that your suit's receiving the most transmission from that. So you want to try to stay in the upper 90s. And as you add more networks, you're going to be able to have, higher coverage as well. The reason this is important is because it gives you a visual cue if there's going to be any packet loss or any data that's not going to be received properly. So with this, you could say, hey, this area maybe is too far and now I'm not getting any good signal. Maybe I should come in closer so I can maintain a high level of signal strength to get the best capture possible. We've listened to you guys for a long time. Project management has been one of the key things that you guys have asked us for, and now we have that option here on the UI, so you can actually have your projects labeled. You could add comments. I believe we're going to be adding batch export in one of the future firmware updates, and really just a lot of key things. And data processing. Data processing is actually data cleanup. So this data cleanup is actually something very similar to what Xsense does, which they kind of force you into a cleanup. Every time you record, the data processes, it takes a long time. And then it kind of gives you this is the take that you guys took. So now with the data cleanup, this data processing under the editing tab, now you could do a take, you could still keep your raw file, or if there's something that you want to smooth out, you just click that button, it'll process it really quick and it'll clean it out for you guys. And so again, we'll show you what that looks like later on because we have a really good example with high dynamic movement. And as I mentioned, with the compass calibration and this environment awareness, this is the one-step compass calibration. So in previous versions, if you're using the PN Pro, you'd kind of have to rotate your box, you'd have to look at what's happening, or even if sensors were magnetized, you had to do the little single rotation. Now with this, when you're doing your environment awareness, you're going to look around for an environment, you're going to find the best possible spot, you're going to lay your sensors down on a surface that's really good, like plastic table or something like that you don't have to worry about. And then you're going to do this compass calibration, which it's called simple for us. We're going to go over both variations. But once you do this compass calibration, it's going to make your sensors learn the environment that they're in. It's going to give them an awareness of where they're at. So now those sensors are calibrated to the environment that you're going to be capturing in. And this step is vital because you're going to want to do this every time that you take your sensors to a new location. Doing that is going to enable you to get the best capture possible, the best results possible. So I can't stress this step enough, and we're going to go over it later on in the broadcast. So 3 keys to mocap. So we've already kind of been pushing this down your throats a little bit, but these things change with the Perceptron Studio. It's really a new way of looking at the 3 keys to mocap. And the first thing that we're going to be looking at is environment. The environment is so key because the same way that I told you about that one-step calibration process, the compass calibration, now you're able to use your sensors. The Access Studio software enables you to have that real-time data of what is good and what is bad. So now you're going to take your sensors, you're going to walk around your environment, learn what's happening, lay them down, do the simple calibration or the standard calibration, which is for more extreme situations. So the way that I like to look at it is you're going to do simple calibration pretty much 99% of the time. This is going to calibrate your sensors to the environment. And if you have to do the standard calibration, it's essentially calibrating the sensors to the Earth's magnetic field, which is going to be north, I believe. And then sensor placement. Again, we stress this 100 times, which is making sure that you place the sensors in the right place to maximize the tracking quality. And then with Studio, we have a new way to do the posture calibration. That's A pose, S pose, and T pose. So now we're going to go to Setup, Software, and Capture. Before I go on, I don't know if there's any questions because I can't see the chat, but if there's anything that you guys need clarification on, if you guys need anything to be reiterated, please let us know. That's why we're here. The Studio software, the Studio hardware is a brand new way to look at the mocap. We're redefining the way that you're capturing, and the improvements here are really important. So we want to make sure that you guys understand the fundamentals of that before we start going on to, playing around with the tech and the software. So anything that people are asking?
I think there's a question from Ian Van Vliet. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. This is maybe a silly question in the office. We have an OptiTrack system laying around. Is that can be used with this ecosystem? The answer is it will be with the hybrid system once we launch that. So stay tuned. We're hoping to do this online. We were going to do the launch at NAB in Las Vegas, but since that's canceled, we're going to do an online launch probably at the end of April, early May, and we'll show you the different cameras that we support for the optical. And you're lucky if you have just an OptiTrack laying around. That's an expensive thing to have laying around.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah, so anything else before we go on to the next portion? If not, I'm going to go ahead and start talking before I pass this on to Daniel.
Actually, somebody was asking, do you have any preferences for which batteries to use for the glove? And we responded to that person. But that's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
We like rechargeable batteries.
Yeah. They tend to last longer for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tend to last longer. And what we've seen is that obviously they're easily hot swappable, so you're not having to buy batteries consistently.
And it's more environmental.
It is more environmental. You're getting longer battery life on them, which is good. And so, yeah, rechargeable batteries. I don't think there's a preference in terms of brand. Just rechargeable batteries tend to be our favorite.
All right, Alex, when you're ready, you can.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and relinquish my hosting abilities to Daniel. I'm just going to kind of give you guys a quick overview because we're going to go talking about 4 steps today in terms of getting set up. So we're going to be talking about getting started, which is, Daniel's going to walk us through the USB transceiver connection, when you first get your kit, what it looks like when you're connecting over PoE, choosing your best channel, changing frequencies, doing that environmental check, and the compass calibration. Step 2 is going to be the introduction to the UI, putting on the sensors, calibrating the suit, and then looking at the software functions. Step 3 is going to be capturing. So we're going to be walking through, again, those essential settings, what you're going to be broadcasting as, capturing and recording a take. And finally, we're going to be looking at reviewing the data processing if that's needed, and what it's like to export that data. So that's the things that we're going to be covering today. Daniel will go ahead and walk us through that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and stop my screen share.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Daniel, and I have here Ari, who's also joining me in this section of setup for the hardware and software. So nice to meet everyone. Thank you for joining us. And how you want to, Ari, you want to say your introduction real quick?
Hi, I'm Ari. I'm here in Los Angeles. I live with my cat, Kaylee, and I work with Perception Neuron Studio.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So the first section that we're going to do is a quick start. I want everyone to get comfortable with tools and features that Access Studio has. The first thing you want to do when you get your kit, your Perception Neuron Studio kit, is set up your transceiver. This is the very first thing that we want everyone to start to do. So the transceiver that I have in front of me right now to test with is actually in a blue channel, and we're going to do an exercise where I'm going to set up my transceiver and switch it over to a green channel, set up multiple transceivers, and then connect so I can do the environment check. So
can I just interrupt you there? I think it's important to introduce what the transceivers are in PN Studio. This is a completely new system, and if people have been used to what we were doing with PN 2.0, you were using Wi-Fi. In PN Pro, you were using a dedicated little transceiver. Mm-hmm. Now, in this case, it's a much more powerful transceiver. When you order your kit, you get one transceiver, which has a range of about 7 meter omnidirectional from the antenna. I think Mr. Ari is holding.
If he talks,
he's going right here. So the great thing about these transceivers is instead of, if you have a really large capture volume, instead of only using one, you can use multiple transceivers and spread them out, whether you're on a stage, if you're in a park, in a football field on location, or on a movie set. You can use the power over Ethernet to spread these out so that when your suit is sending out its information, it's picked up by multiple different base stations, these transceivers. If you're only using one suit in a 30 to 40 foot diameter location, you can connect it via USB power. So the first thing that Daniel's going to show us is how to connect one suit via USB when you first get it out of the kit.
Correct.
And just another thing on that is, of course, it works both USB as well as PoE. PoE is power over Ethernet. It's the same kind of Ethernet system that's used for security cameras, for example.
Or OptiTrack systems.
Or OptiTrack systems, exactly. And we have in our system availability of 5 channels, which are
frequencies 1 through 5, which are green, blue, purple, yellow, and white. Lion. Yeah, and white. Yes.
And the recommended channels are, Alex?
Blue and green, which are going to be your best frequencies.
So those are always the two you want to start with.
Yeah, when you get your kit, it's always going to be green. But as you start adding more people, or if you want to add more performers, you could obviously change those. But you want to primarily try to stick to green and blue.
And now, why do we need multiple channels, Mr. Alex?
The reason that we need multiple channels is because sometimes you're going to be in a spot that may not give you the best frequency. For example, actually, this is a perfect example. Yesterday, we were doing something where Daniel he has a wireless mic on. He's right there. We were testing for the webinar today, yesterday. And so essentially, he had turned on the kits. We're going to do the same process yesterday. And we noticed that the frequency was actually not so great. That the frequency was quite low. The signal strength was not very high. And we noticed that when he turned off the wireless mic, the signal strength shot up to like 100%. He was probably hovering around like 50, 60. Turn off the frequency, the wireless mic shot up to 100%. He was able to turn it back on because that mic has frequency hopping, but it's something simple as that, right? Where you're able to say, hey, look, this channel that I'm on is not 100%. I'm not getting the best signal strength that I need. So you could easily swap to another channel to make sure that you are getting the best data possible.
And also the fact that with 5 channels, it allows you you kind of max out in terms of sensors for one person, including fingers, on one channel. So the fact that you have 5 channels allows you to do 5 individual people. So one channel dedicated to each of your actors, up to 5 actors with fingers into one system. And of course, you would have, for each actor, you would have its own transmitter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear because it took me a while to get my head wrapped around that part.
Mm-hmm. No, very, very good. It is important for people to understand the difference in how it connects through. So with that, I think Daniel can continue on with connecting, this first step, which is making sure that you connect the transceiver properly, because it is very important because we're very eager. We came from background of being like plug and play, of course, and if you plug in your transceiver, your USB transceiver, you turn on your sensors, and you're like, how come this thing isn't working? Why is nothing on? Why is nothing turned on? It's because you have to go through this first step. If not, you're not going to be able to mocap anything. So Daniel's going to walk us through that first initial setup.
All right. Thank you, guys. So as I mentioned, first thing you want to do is set up the transceiver. We're going to connect the transceiver via USB. This is using an NDIS USB modem. We're going to be setting up a static IP on this transceiver. So I'm going to go ahead and first into Windows. Let's go and make sure that's go into Control Panel. And we want to go into the Network and Internet. Go to Network and Sharing Center. I want this window to be open so everyone see what happens when I hook up the transceiver to the computer. So right now I have my wireless connection. I'm going to go ahead and connect the USB cable to the transceiver. 2 things going to happen. Windows is going to detect the transceiver, and then the transceiver is going to show up on my network connection here. So give it a few minutes for it to identify the network. One of the things you want to go ahead and do is just check the status connection. So click on the Ethernet here information. On the status window here, if you click on details, you'll see that this transceiver has been set up yet. You see a 169.254, etc. What we need to do is set up the static IP on this transceiver. And by doing so, I'll go into the properties, click on TCP IPv4, and I'm going to set up the static IP here. Now, this information is on a manual. We're going to put a 192.168.1.200.
Yeah, we recommend starting at 200 and working your way up. We have a range that is on the manual, but starting at 200 is what we advise for you guys.
Okay, so yes, so that's the range that we're going to start with. Once that is configured, you're going to press OK. Press OK to close the properties window and close the status window. Now I'm going to go back just to make sure that everything's set up properly. Go back to details, and now we have the static IP set up for this transceiver. So that's the very first step to setting up a transceiver via USB. Now, what we want to do is now go into the Access Studio. Open up Access Studio. Give it a minute to start up. And the first thing you're going to see is the project window. We're going to go ahead and talk about the UI in a little bit. For now, we're going to start up with the sample project and go into the capture window here. When you go to the capture window, you have a look at the device list on the right top side. There's no hubs connected at this point. This is where we should be seeing a hub. To set up the hub configuration inside of Access Studio, you want to go into the main menu, go into settings, and in the settings panel here, you have different options. Where you want to go look at is the device. And under the device, you have a network option. You also have your frame rate. This is very important to set up before you start doing any motion capture. So right now, the network is being detected on my local computer network card. I want to connect to the transceiver we just set up. So I'm going to select the .200, and I'm going to select frame rates. We have different frame rate options, which we spoke about earlier, from 60 to 240. We're going to start off with the full body mode. So I will select 100 for this example. Press OK. As soon as I press OK, now we have a look here at the device list. We have the transceiver set up. We have it detected, and it has an IP of 2.253. All right, so that covers the second portion that I wanted to talk about. Now we're going to
Daniel.
Yes.
Just real quick, because that was something that was a little bit confusing, and this is something silly. But where is the main menu?
The main menu is on the top right-hand corner.
Okay, yeah,
the three bars.
Yeah, the 3 bars. I had the toughest time looking for that when we first got the software. So it's important that people see this 3 little bars they've changed to be the main menu that gives you access to the settings and a lot of the.
Yeah, it's different from our previous ones. Before we had everything written on the top portion. So now we have things condensed onto the little menu. So the 3 bars is our new menu system.
Right. Yeah, we'll cover that during the UI section.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So once we've already set up the transceiver to Access Studio, now we're going ahead and switch the frequency on this transceiver. Now we're going to go to the main menu again. So that's the top right-hand corner, and we have the option to change the frequency. So I want you to look at the frequency setting. Right now, again, I have my transceiver connected through USB. You see the color right now currently is blue, and I'll click on Next. And at this point, I have no sensors connected. I just have my transceiver. I click Connect, give it a second for Access Studio to connect to the transceiver. I have Next highlighted. Click on Next. And at this menu, this is where you see the different channels that we have available. We have 5 different channels available right now. My transceiver is set up to blue. What I want to do is now switch it over to green. So to do so, I will go ahead and click on the green channel, which is channel 1. Mm-hmm. Click on Switch. And as soon as I click Switch, right now transceiver gets disconnected. It's going to
reset,
reboot for the green channel. And then we're going to wait to see the finish button to be highlighted so that we can confirm the completion of the switch of frequency. So now we can see the green is now currently active right there. So I click on Finish. And now as soon as I switch frequency, now I have green icon available up top on the right-hand side on the device list.
So this step that Daniel did with the transceiver is important because you guys are going to have the ability to manually switch the channel that you guys want to go on. But the same step is necessary if you guys are going to be switching the whole frequency on your entire suit, right? That's transceiver and the full kit, and gloves included. So essentially what you're going to have to end up doing is what Daniel did, right? He's going to go to the menu bar. He's going to go to the frequency settings. Instead of having no sensors connected, all the sensors would be connected. He'd click it. You'd see all the sensors detected, 17 if that's what he's using. And then he'd go through that same process, select a new frequency that he'd want to go on, and then you'd see the color change both on that UI and then here on the device list. You'll see that change take effect.
Perfect.
Yeah, just to add on to what Alex said, the the sensors have to be on the same channel as the transceiver, and the transceiver always has to be on the right channel to begin with, or else you won't be able to. Let's say your sensors are on blue channel and your transceiver is on green channel. Well, it won't see any of your suit sensors. So you got to make sure that. So this happens sometimes. For example, if you switch to another channel and then later on you decide you need to use the spare sensor that comes with the kit, but that one was never updated, so you have to switch back your transceiver to that previous channel that was being used by the spare sensor, and then go through the whole process of changing it back to match with the other to match with the other sensors.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Daniel.
All right, guys. So now we've already covered setting up the transceiver, changing the frequency. Now we're going to show you guys how to do multiple.
Oh wait, one quick thing. You can tell what on the transceiver itself. You can tell what channel it is by looking at the back of the transceiver. There's a little LED light that lights.
Are you able to pick yours up, Daniel? Do you have enough room?
I don't have enough.
Okay. Yeah. So if at the back of the transceiver, there's a little tiny little LED light. I'm colorblind, so I can't tell.
So
it will glow the right color.
Yeah. But this would turn on.
You gotta unshare his screen and then spotlight your video.
It's okay. The light's not on because I don't have any USB outlets. But in theory,
that's useful.
The light matches the light on the back of the transceiver matches the lights of the blinking suit.
Yes. Cool, Daniel. So I think now we're going to show you guys how to connect multiple transceivers if you guys have that available to you. So, we are going to be making transceivers available. So like we said, there's one included in the kit. You're going to have the ability to purchase more in case you guys want to add those on to either increase signal strength or to increase the range of coverage that you guys want to capture in. And Daniel's going to walk us through that step now on how to connect that second transceiver.
All right, guys. So we've just finished setting up the transceiver through USB, and now we're going to switch over to PoE. I'm going to show you a quick diagram that shows you how it looks like when you set up multiple transceivers. As you can see in this diagram here, we have two different transceivers connected to a PoE switch, and then the PoE switch is connected to the DHCP router. The LAN ports, and then you see the computer, which is going to be running the Access Studio, connecting to all the data from the transceiver. So this is more or less what the configuration looks like right now. So we just set up, I already had a transceiver on a green channel. I just switched over the current transceiver I was working with from blue to green. So what I will do is go back into the network sharing center here and watch me disconnect the USB from this panel. As soon as I do that, the network connection gets disconnected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my computer to the router. Okay, you see that Access Studio just lost connection, and then I need to connect my router now so I can tap into the PoE support. So behind the scenes here, I'm just connecting my computer to the router. Okay, as soon as I plug that in, you're going to see now I have another network show up. This is my router that's shooting out the DHCP IP address for all the transceivers. And what I'll do is I'm going to check the status here, click on details. And you can see right now this router is set up to 192.168.1.100. This is already
Daniel.
Could you repeat that? We lost you for a second.
You were gone for about 10 seconds.
It was a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah.
Tell me when.
So just about the new network that had shown up. So could you continue from that point?
So we had the new network show up on the network sharing center, and then I just connected the router to my computer. And what I'll do is I'll just click on connections, details, and now we have the IP detected automatically. Now this router's already been set up with this IP address, and it's showing up as a new network connection. So that's just confirming what we have set up right now. So I'll just close this panel. Now I'm going to go into Access Studio, go into the capture window here, go to main menu to the top right-hand corner, go to settings, and then we're going back to the device detail. Now we're going to look at this section here and just look at what's available at the moment. Click on the router that we just connected right now, and let's make sure that we have everything connected as far as the cable goes with the transceivers. All cables are connected. Make sure everything's running before I go ahead and do this. Give that a second for the transceivers to be up and running. Select the router that I just connected. Press OK. As soon as I did that, now I set up Access Studio to detect my router, and all my transceivers are hooked up to the router's backend to communicate with each other. Now I have 2 transceivers on the network. You can connect multiple transceivers as you need. So that's kind of the demonstration that I wanted to show you guys. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, do you guys have any questions on connecting transceivers? Again, this part is super important in case you guys want to add more transceivers, in case you're going to have multiple people on the same computer. Again, Daniel showed you how to switch the frequency. And, after this step, we're going to start going through, hold on, I see Ian. We're going to be going through walking around and connecting and checking your environment. So let me see. So when you want to extend coverage, 2 transceivers, for example, with 5 suits, you will need 10 antennas. Yes. So Ian brings up a good point. If you want to extend coverage, again, you're going to need a PoE that supports that many ports, but you essentially, if you want to, each transceiver is going to give you 7 meters omnidirectional. So if you're having 5 people, you're going to need 1 transceiver per person minimum. And then if you want to make that coverage space larger, you're going to add a second antenna, a second transceiver of that same color, right? So 2 greens, 2 blues, 2 cyan, 2 purple, and 2 whites, for example. So yes, if you're going to extend the coverage and get better signal, then you would use 10 antennas for 5 different suits.
And if you look on our YouTube page, I actually did sort of a range test for the Perception Neuron Studio suits out in the parking lot of the studio here in LA. And it covers quite a bit of distance. And in that distance, the signal range is fantastic with just 1 transceiver. So you're going to have a very large capture volume if you start using multiple transceivers, which is fantastic.
Exactly. Perfect. So now Daniel, I believe, is going to go ahead and I believe this next portion is going to show you guys, the environment awareness that you get using Access Studio. So he's going to go ahead and turn on the sensors on his suit. Or am I jumping ahead, Daniel?
No, it's okay. So yeah, we're going to go into demonstrate the new tools that Access Studio offers with Perception Neuron Studio. It's our real-time environment check. So I have here my sensors placed on this little rolly thing, and I'm going to press the sensors. In front of each sensor, there's a little button. So you want to press that for about 2 seconds. And keep in mind that I have not removed these sensors from the calibration box while doing this exercise.
Yeah, so he's going to go through the process as he's doing this, so he's going 2 at a time. And then we're going to switch over to the UI because you'll see that all the sensors are going to be connected and what they look like. And then we're going to walk around the environment. Again, this step is super vital, and it's really a new way of looking at the way that you're doing the motion capture because now you have the tools directly in front of you. Now you have the way to assess the environment using the sensors that we give you and the UI that you're going to be using. So I think Daniel's going to go back now to.
So right now I have the sensors flashing right now, and what I'm going to go back into Access Studio. I'm going to click on this little connect icon on the top right hand corner. This is on the device.
You switch over to your menu, to your software. Share.
Can you guys see?
Not yet. Share screen.
Okay. So click on connect.
Wait. So nothing.
Still nothing? Give me 1 second. Why it's not sharing? Can you see now?
Yeah. So go ahead and disconnect just so people can see, or put them to sleep mode. So Daniel's going to go ahead and walk us through that. He had turned on all the sensors. We have on the top menu where it says device list, we have 3 icons, one that's connect, one that's to put the sensors to sleep, and one's to turn them off. He's going to go ahead and click the connect button. And that's going to detect the sensors. And right away, you're able to see that 17 sensors are identified on the body. So that is your skeletal model, same familiar configuration that if you've used our previous systems, you're going to be able to see. He's going back and forth on this UI, one that indicates the signal strength, another one that indicates the magnetic level of interference. And so that's a quick tab to look at stuff. But where he's hovering over right now, which is the device list, this is going to be your real-time indicator. And so this next step is very important as we're going to go ahead and start doing our environment check to make sure that we do the compass calibration in the right spot. So that table that he was on actually is a really good example of what's bad for us. And you could see actually as Daniel walks around, if he goes too far away from the antenna, that the signal drops. Actually, some bad coverage there for the signal. Do you mind turning off your microphone and turning it back on?
Yes.
Since we ran into this issue yesterday, let's see if it's the same thing. So again, this is something that we troubleshooted yesterday. It's actually a really good example of making sure that things are not on the same frequency. So as Daniel comes back, let's see. Daniel's back. Goes away. 100%. So it looks like it's this little mic that's interfering with that a little bit.
Give me 1 second while I disconnect the mic one more time.
Yeah, but what's really nice and to look at is here on the device list, that things that you're looking at: signal strength, magnetic details, and the battery life indicator. So as Daniel's walking around, he was able to find the spot. Daniel, could you walk around just a little bit more with that? I just kind of want people to see what was happening. Again, signal strength, moving around in real time, magnetic level indicator. Could you put it back on the table? So of course you're going to be doing a location scout, right? Visually, right? Which is what we always tell you. Look at your environment visually, right? So make sure if there's OA flowing, that you're not under like cables. If you're next to a microphone, you want to avoid things like that. You don't want to be next to a CT scan machine, right? So as Daniel moved around, he was able to find an environment in our studio that's conducive to doing this calibration, right? So now everything is green. Sometimes you guys may not have an all green environment. Sometimes it may be partially green, mostly yellows. The important thing is to avoid red, right? You don't want to calibrate in a red spot, because doing the compass calibration in an environment that's red is going to give you bad results.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, go ahead.
The benefit of this new UI and the new hardware that's within the Studio Kit is, with our previous suits, we recommended to download a magnetometer app on your phone and use your phone to detect bad spots in your environment. Now, with this new hardware and new software, you have 17 magnetometers that are constantly monitoring your environment, so that you can tell when you put that box in a certain location, whether it's on the table and you saw things got worse, or when you're walking around your environment, you have 17 different sensors all picking up interference from the area, so that you know where the hot spots are, where you shouldn't do mocap, or where the best spot is to calibrate your box.
Yeah.
Let me just step in on that just for a second. Yes and no. Like, yes, they are magnetometers, but they're a lot more than that. And this is what the kind of the learning process is with the system, that it learns to adapt to a certain extent to the magnetic field that's in the location. So the results that you might get from an application, a magnetometer app on your phone, and what you would see on the screen don't necessarily match each other. What the data on the sensors is telling you, the good, severe, or whatnot, is telling you is how the system is dealing right now with the magnetic interference, not necessarily what the magnetic interference is in that particular space, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And it's really important to do that. And again, that's why we tell you guys that it's super important that you do this step in the beginning, right, when you take your sensors to a new location, because you are basically training the sensors to be in the environment that they're going to be in. So again, we're connected. We see the sensors where they're at. Daniel's going to go ahead and show us what it looks like. We're going to go ahead and do the compass calibration. So he's going to disconnect the sensors. You see the sensors are gone. He's going to go to the main menu. Again, those three little tabs there. and he's going to go to magnetic calibration. And so here for the environment that we're in, and in most scenarios, like we mentioned, we're going to be doing the simplified calibration. So the simplified calibration is the scenario that you're going to be running into pretty much 90% of the time, 99% of the time. So he's going to go ahead and click connect. See the sensors are there. He's going to click start. And again, the sensors are right behind him on that little stool. This is a one-step calibration. You don't have to do anything. What's really important about this right here is that the sensors remain in the same place as if you were charging them, right? You don't remove them from the dock. You don't turn them over. You don't move them around. Make sure that they stay in the same spot, facing the same direction. So make sure that they're all docked, facing the same way that if you're going to leave them to be charged. Once that happens, we didn't have a really bad scenario here, so the sensors are primarily going to be green, right? No issues there. And everything's green, signal strength is good. And that's all we need to do in RStudio. In the case that something were bad, Daniel, can you spotlight your video? I just kind of want to show very briefly visually what the standard calibration looks like. You don't have to do it. I just want to spotlight your video. So let me see, pin. Yeah, so pinning Daniel's video, he's not going to perform the action, but he's going to go ahead and show us what that looks like. He's going to be rotating the box along the y-axis, on all the sides. And what's here is important is that you're doing it on the y-axis, you're rotating all along the thing. And this process is manual. So this is for more extreme scenarios. If, let's say you performed your simple calibration in the environment that you're in, you weren't getting the results that you wanted. Things weren't working 100%. So you're going to take your sensors off, you're going to turn them off, put them back in the box, align them the same way, again, facing the same direction, and you're going to perform this standard calibration to improve the results. Again, because this is, you're training the sensors, but they're going to be trained, to the Earth's magnetic compass, because that's what you're going to be doing. Perfect. Thanks, Daniel. So let me go ahead. Yes. Unpin video. Did I do that? Switch to sharing. How do I unpin you?
Let me unpin.
Yeah.
All right. So let's
go back to the.
Yep. Can you see the screen?
There. I think there. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Are you guys able to see the UI now? Yes. Yes. Okay. Great. People are saying that they can see the UI. Okay. Excellent. Perfect.
So that covers pretty much the tools and features that we want everyone to be comfortable with before you start getting up and running with your Perceptron Studio. The next exercise.
This is kind of like, sorry, let me step in for a second. This is what Alex and I kind of call the foundation. In the different steps you go into, you have to lay in a really good foundation so your mocap will be of the highest quality possible. And again, this is for the highest quality mocap, and a lot of people don't need that extreme or are happy with just, having some rough stuff. But we want people to get the best quality. You're spending a lot of money on this high-end equipment, so let's show you how to do it the right way and spend the extra 10-15 minutes to get everything done the right way so you get the best quality mocap you can.
Great. Okay, Daniel.
Okay,
you can go ahead and continue.
So for this exercise, I will give the remote control for Ari, so you can help me out with a few steps here.
Sure, give me 1 second.
So the next section is going to be introduction to the UI and starting the sensor setup. So Ari, you have control of my screen?
I do.
All right. So thank you. So let's go ahead and the next slide, Alex, is just getting started, right? The setup process.
Yeah, so right now, the next thing that we've done our environment awareness, we've checked our sensors, we've done frequency checks, in terms of things that we're doing. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is step 2, which is putting on the sensors, right? This is the setup. So step 2 is going to be going on and putting on the sensors. So go ahead and do that, Daniel.
So what I want Ari to do is to make sure that we can check the environment once more, just to make sure that nobody forgets that. It looks good.
We got all green lights and 100% signal.
Perfect. So,
and personally, I just like connecting the suit when somebody's self-suiting up because it's funny to watch them build it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a zombie putting themselves back together.
Great. And so something that I want to note, and we've stressed on some of our other webinars, is that the way that Daniel's putting on the sensors is that he's doing it in a way that's going to be the most effective for him, or the most proficient, right? So he's got the the head, upper back, and lower back lined up on the 3 sensor slots on the left-hand side. Those 3 little sensor slots, and then he's got his right body sensors on one side and the left sensors on another. This is going to give you, for us, this is what we consider best practice in order to most effectively put the sensors on as quickly as possible on a performer or on an actor, whatever we need, as well as just going around for what's going to be taking place. So making sure that you know the location of the sensors beforehand just makes it so much easier when you guys are setting up and doing what you need to be doing before the capture. Again, best practices.
Ultimately, it's everyone has their own way of organizing them in the box. I know personally, but when I work with Alex and we travel, I sometimes have a different way, which causes that's why now I let whoever's going to be controlling it put them in the box themselves. That way they know exactly where they are and the way they like them. And one of the most common mistakes that we make is putting a left sensor on the right side and the right side. That's the most common thing that happens to us about 50% of the time.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm ready, Aris, for the next step.
Okay. It looks like you need a calibration.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and do that.
Let's select my body size just to make sure.
Oh, good call.
Yeah, so just a quick answer while you guys do the calibration. John Brand's asking if we have clients that put costumes over the tech for live performances. Yeah, of course. So each of these sensors, you don't have to worry about them, about putting wardrobe on top of them or anything like that. What's important, if you do have wardrobe on top, is to make sure that those sensors don't move. That's the most important thing. So once you do the calibration, you want to avoid those sensors moving, or rattling around on the body. So that's number one.
All right, we're doing the calibration A pose.
Mm-hmm.
And S pose. And a T pose.
Okay.
Cool.
So I'm checking to make sure my knees are bending correctly, arms are working in good form.
And can we see what the device details look like there? Want to make sure that those are still good. Perfect. Awesome. So this is what's important, right, guys? We want to make sure that the signal strength is as high as possible. We want to make sure that the environment is good, that those sensors are still green or yellow. And, battery life is occasionally you could check it. So make sure that you guys aren't low. And what's important when you guys are looking at the signal strength is to make sure that the signals on top are also high. So up top where it says device list, we have our 2 transceivers and those are at 98 and 99. The way that they explained it to us is that imagine that you're having a bunch of ears listening to a conversation, right? So the more ears that you have listening, the better the signal, or the better the end result is going to be of whatever the conversation took place. So if someone doesn't hear something, someone else can pick up that information. So these transceivers are working that same way.
All right. So we've checked out the full body function. Now, Ari, let's get ready for the glove, Perception Around Studio glove add-on. Correct, Alex?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so this was a quick connection with the 17 sensors, right? You would still perform the same things, and we're gonna actually be recording with the full gloves on. We just kind of want to show you guys what this looks like as you're first doing your initial setup. So when you guys are going from here, if you want to connect the gloves, you can actually do these 2 ways. You can turn off the sensors on the palm, which will immediately disconnect the sensors that you see visible here on the UI, or you can immediately turn on the gloves. There's 2 little buttons on the side which enable you to turn on the gloves. You'll feel a buzz, and then the lights will turn green, and it'll be a visual indicator as well as some sort of feedback to let you know that they're turned on. And once that happens, it'll immediately be connected just when you click the connect button. So Daniel, did you turn off your palm sensors?
Okay, turn them off.
Just I think that goes without saying that once with the gloves, you do not need to use your 2 palm sensors that come with the system. So those can be put away, turned off and put away.
Yeah, the reason that we say turn them off is, for example, if you were just to turn on the sensors without turning off the palm sensors, those are actually still going to be flashing green. They're not going to be interfering with the mocap that you have, but they're going to be on. So the best thing to do is just to turn them off, right? It saves battery life. You don't have to worry about touching them. But we have had some feedback of some people potentially thinking that they work, so they'll put them up, they'll put them on the little slots on the
Just
side.
just to know that people can see on the avatar right now that the 2 palm sensors are off on the full body.
Yes, which is what we want. We wanted him to turn off the sensors, and so with that he's going to be the sensors on the palm. Now that the gloves are going to be connected, did they buzz, Daniel? Did you get the feedback from them?
Currently turning them on. I'm also seeing that there's a green LED light on each glove, letting me know that there's connection being established. I get the buzz.
Yep.
Yeah,
so we reconnect. And
there
now we have the entire avatar plus the hands.
Right, immediately detected, which is great. So just because the gloves were connected doesn't mean that you can avoid a calibration. You still have to do this step to make sure that the gloves are working properly. And so that's what Daniel and Ari are going to do now. So now,
right. Daniel, go ahead and move your hands right now. So this is obviously, you can tell a calibration is needed. This is one of the benefits of having your performer and your operator, so that you can have somebody flagging when the mocap goes bad.
Perfect. So go ahead and perform that calibration for us, guys.
Just make sure the body size selected. Just rule of thumb.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Now we can do the calibration.
S-pose.
And T-pose. Now the T-pose, guys, is the one that's going to be calibrating the fingers. Like I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, we're going to be trying to add on new calibrations for the hands, which will enable you to get a lot better finger data quality. But as far as you guys can see now, this is still really good. Daniel's wiggling his index fingers around. Again, 2 degrees of freedom on the thumb, 1 for the rest of the fingers. And that's the data that we're getting. Ari, could you do me a favor and scroll over the device details real quick?
Sure.
And scroll down. Perfect. So again, when you guys turn on the gloves, you're actually also going to get that same information that you're getting for the full body set for the 17 sensors. You're going to get each of the signal strengths for each of those individual fingers. You're going to get what the data quality looks like, right? Daniel's hovering over that table. You can see that things are switching from severe to green to poor in real time.
Hang on a second. Go ahead and hold your hand out, Daniel. Over the table again. So he's walking over to the table, and the magnetism that's on the table is causing the sensors to tell you that that's a hot spot.
Yeah, don't be there, or avoid that as long as possible. If you do need to touch that, make it very short. So that's the feedback that I wanted to give you guys, that you're getting this real-time data, you're getting the device details, the signal strength, and the battery life all in real time. So the UI is a lot more intuitive, makes it so much easier to kind of analyze the space that you're in, that you're capturing in. And overall, it's going to give you the best results when you go into capturing movement.
Let me just add two little things if I can.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we can talk about real quick with the glove is they are much more sensitive than the rest of your sensors on the body. The finger ones are the most sensitive. So should you start, if somebody's been playing around with their cell phone or touched some metal and you're starting seeing fingers like going in a weird direction, there is a way of compass calibrating the gloves, and that is to spin on your own axis all the way around and do this kind of dance with your fingers. Do that like once or twice, and this is the way to recalibrate
the sensors.
Recalibrate the sensors on your fingers.
Exactly.
So there's Daniel doing it. Yeah.
So Daniel's, rotating around. You could see him moving his fingers. Sometimes what happens as well as what we've seen, and this is why we recommend the rechargeable batteries. For some reason, there tends to be an issue from time to time that if you're using just standard AA batteries, when the batteries run low, they might actually give you bad data. So it's best to make sure that you have full batteries when you're using the gloves, and that you're using the rechargeable ones, because that will give you actually, the best results.
Yeah, that's actually. I was gonna say the exact thing. You may get, for example, in your magnetic column, severe or bad. Sometimes when any of your sensors go to a very low battery life, like a 1, or they're towards dying for the end of the day, especially on the gloves, or if you have very bad reception as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the system is basically just confusing bad data, lack of data with heavy magnetic interference.
Yeah.
So just make sure that it's make sure that your system is charged properly each time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So I think that covers pretty much on the step 2 portion. We've talked about the UI, we've talked about putting on the sensors, we've done a suit calibration, and I just want to go over briefly, if you guys are okay with it, talking about the software functions. So this is really explaining what those solver parameters do. We've already talked about device details. We've covered the body dimensions. So I really think the last thing here is really going over the solver parameters so people can understand it. I don't want to go into too much because it's pretty much very similar to our other functionalities, but I think the key difference here is the scenarios, which is something new that we're doing. And I want to cover the contact points, which we're going to be adding more. Again, this is one of those things about firmware updates that we're going to be doing. So I'll cover that portion. So new on the solver parameters that we don't have on the previous systems is that we've included scenarios, and these scenarios are we're going to be adding a lot more because there's so many different things that people do, and there's so many different use cases. But right now we have 3, right? 3 meaning single level constraint, which is where Daniel's on. He's on a single plane. He's able to walk back and forth. He's able to move around on this flat level. Then we have free climbing. Free climbing essentially means going up and down stairs, ladders, anything like that. So if Ari switches to data and Daniel goes ahead and stands up on that box, as long as he's safe and secure, boom, we're going to see him stand up. That's excellent, right? That's what we want to see. That's what we want. So you can go up multiple stairs, flights, whatever it is. Again, the thing that you have to remember with using inertial sensors and stairs is that you're going to have less accuracy the longer that you do it for. So the first few might look really good. After that, you might have to do that take over again. So they're going to go ahead and switch back to single level constraint. That's not a problem. Back to the ground. That's great. And then the fixed hip, which is more for a marionetting. For example, if you don't care about the character moving back and forth in space, and they're going to be moving around, they can do something like this, which is great. So we're going to be adding different things for like hip height if you're sitting down, if you're going to be crawling on the ground. We're going to be adding different scenarios, as well as those contact points, which is really important. So if you guys have any feedback as well, because I think it's really important to hear from what you guys are interested in. If you guys send us any feedback on what scenarios you think are interesting or important, what contact points we think need to be added, let us know, because we obviously send those things to the R&D and engineering team, and obviously they're working on these things on constant updates and releases. So any feedback that you guys have is really important. Anything that you want to add on to that, Rock?
Are you gonna talk about the posture reset and the anti-mag?
Yeah, that's really important. So 2 things that we have here. So the environment that we're in isn't necessarily very bad, but there's 2 things that there's some things that you can do in case the scenario or the environment that you're in isn't so great. And so Ari, can you go hover over the characters tab and then look at the magnetic? Don't click on it yet. I just want to show people what that looks like.
Well, I would do the reset compass first. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's something that, for example, like let's say you're for us when we were at a show and Alex or James is wearing the suit the whole day. After a while, there's a little bit of drift, and we don't want to redo a calibration because they really haven't touched their thing. The easy way to reset your calibration on your posture calibration is to click that quick reset button, and that simply the person has to be facing the same way as they did when they calibrated. and make sure that the sensors have not moved, and that should take them back. You can't really see it there because it's a pretty good environment, but
Yeah.
let's say you've been wearing this for an hour, not that, we're the only people that do that at shows, but then it would just be a lazy man's recalibration. Ideally, you should do a recalibration, but it just cleans everything back up.
Yeah, exactly. It just really resets the sensors to the last good calibration that you did. But again, this really only works if your sensors have not moved. Again, best practice, right? Someone was talking about putting a costume on, making sure it's fine if someone has a costume on. It's fine if you have clothes over it. That's not a problem. It's fine that you wear it for an hour or for 5 hours a day if you're someone like us. But the important thing is that those sensors don't move. If they move, just do a new calibration. If you know that they haven't moved much and you see a little bit of drift or things aren't the way that they need to be, just do that posture reset, and that'll, again, a one-click posture calibration resets the sensors to where they need to be. So really important. It's a good thing that Brock brought that up. You guys got to see it there. Again, there wasn't much movement that Daniel had done, or there wasn't much drift on the body. But those little nuances that you get, just a slight fix, and it's super fast because you don't have to do a recalibration again, just saves time on a performance. And finally,
do you want to, sorry, did I miss the lights?
We had talked about it briefly, but yeah, you go ahead and talk about the light, which is, can we, so Ari has a tab there, which looks like a little light bulb. And if he clicks that light bulb, that LED turns off on the body. So let's pin Daniel's video.
Yeah, so one of you guys, if you can pin that, Alex.
Yeah, so pin video. So pinning Daniel's video. So you can see that the LED is off. If Ari clicks that button again, the LED is going to turn on.
I can't click the button while he's not screen sharing.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Let me unpin video. Yeah, so Daniel's doing it, right? So he's able to turn on.
So he's back, yeah.
So going back to the question about
a lot of people
hiding.
That's about hiding the LEDs during performances, and that also extends the battery life on your system.
Exactly. So that turns off both the LED for the sensors on the body as well as the LED on the glove. So all those take effect in real time. Does Ari still have control?
I do.
Okay, excellent. Cool. So let's hover over the magnetic icon, if you may. So this is really important, again, for a scenario that's less than ideal, maybe a little bit chaotic. You're still weren't able to get the results that you wanted out of the simple calibration or the wait, they're saying I think the wrong screen is pinned. Are you guys able to see the Axis UI or no?
Yes.
So you guys can see the screen now where Daniel's moving around. Okay,
yes.
I think it's okay.
It's James.
It's on Axis. Okay, perfect. That's good. Okay, so here, if you're in an environment that's less than ideal, our studio is okay. But let's say you're in an environment, we've done it in Japan, right? So, we've stepped on a step stool, we've done a regular calibration, and then we've turned on the anti-mag. It's been able to work really well. And I don't want to shortcut the way that I'm saying it, because essentially what this button does is it's going to turn off the magnetometers, but not 100%. That's not pure anti-mag. We are actually working on these firmware updates where you're going to have the ability to use true anti-mag. But the way that we define anti-mag currently in the UI is that you're going to rely on the magnetometer a lot less. It's still going to be
the way they tell us, and I think it's good. Is we're basically asking how much does the system want to trust the magnetometer. Mm-hmm. And it's a trust level, 100%, 50%, 20%. And so when we do anti-mag, it's basically increasing, lowering the level of trust on the magnetometer on each of the sensors, and relying more on the rest of the information out there.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. So that's essentially what you guys are doing. So when you turn on this anti-mag, don't think of it as like, going away. It's the level of trust in the environment that you guys are going to be going with. So, Daniel, if you go to your original spot, for example, can you go ahead and go to your original marker? Ari, can you do a origin reset?
Sure.
Do you want to do a full calibration?
Yeah, full calibration.
Okay, let's do a full calibration.
Yeah.
And just to show what this looks like. And what's going to be important after this, Daniel, stay in your T-pose, please. Don't move from that.
When you're done?
Yeah, don't. Stay in T-pose. And now Ari's going to go ahead and click the anti-mag button. Okay, go ahead and bring down your hands. You're good. Okay, you can walk around. You're okay. So yeah, visually you probably can't tell that anything's changed, but now we're relying on the magnetometer a lot less. Again, it's that trust level, but you're still able to move around. If you could you go over and hover over, you weren't getting any issues with the table, but could you go ahead and go to where the table was at? Could you go ahead and like click touch your hand? See how it says immune? So now this area that was really bad, we're able to say, hey, look, stay away from something like that.
The shoulder, you see the shoulder is twisting there a little bit. Well, a little bit.
Yeah. So if he goes back to the posture reset, turns that off, comes back.
No.
Yeah, you just have to. Yeah, you just have to unclick it.
And then do the posture reset.
Things go back to normal.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what that looks like. Again, this is for more extreme scenarios in case you guys are in an environment that's less than ideal. You could play around with the anti-mag functions, again, to make sure that you're getting the best results possible.
Just with the anti-mag function, if you can't really turn it on and off in the middle of a take or anything, you can only turn it on once you've done the full calibration. And ideally, if you're going to turn it off, like let's say he turns it off now, and you want it to go without it, then you turn it off first and then do a full calibration again.
Yeah, so cool. So that's off. Let's go ahead and do a full reset regularly.
Calibration, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So final steps here. So once we're done there, I think we really want to take you guys towards step 3, which is initial settings, capturing and recording a take. So if you guys want to do...
Are you ready to perform, Daniel?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me
give us your best.
You got all the Fortnite moves that we rehearsed, right?
Yeah,
I got it.
He was learning TikTok dancing.
All right, we're rolling.
All right. Let's do like more steps so you guys can see the data. Okay,
Cartwheel.
I think that's good.
Cartwheel, Daniel. Could you do a cartwheel?
Go, like, go all the way to the left side of the studio, and then like just for distance, so that we can show people.
Okay.
How much coverage you have. Like you're in the studio, you're now in the photo section.
And again, as Daniel's going around, what's actually really nice is you're able to see, again, that signal strength, right? That's still really, really high. We want to make sure that it's as high as possible as he's going around, because that's going to give you the best quality data overall, right? You want to make sure that you maintain a few things, right? High signal strength, making sure that the magnetic levels are all green or as close to green as possible. So can't tell everything. Yeah.
Just a note, I don't think he plays. I think he plays both antennas on the table in front of him. They're not at either end of the studios. So ideally, if you're going to use more than one antenna, you want to try and separate them so they cover as much as possible.
Right. I'll almost think of it. Funny enough, think of it as like if you're using the HTC Vive like base stations, right? You always cover them at like 2 angles, so it reads the best area.
Okay.
Again, listening ears. So cool. We've recorded that take where Ari was at. Again, that record button in the bottom, that's going to record your take. You have the ability to name that take, add comments as you please. And then what happens with that take, you actually have the ability to, now we have project management. So if he goes to the project window, that was actually just take 1, but he could see it there, take 1. And if he clicks on that, that data shows up, takes us to our editing window. And now we have the ability to kind of choose some different camera angles, watch this play back, see how Daniel's moving around. You could look at his foot contacts. So again, we have that length of take. We have the ability to like look at everything. make sure everything is okay. And after reviewing this data, we can actually even do a data processing, which is there on the right-hand side. What's important for this, if you're doing a data process, to make sure that you're saving a copy of your original take and then doing the data process on the copy or whatever you want to name that new file. Now we know that's there. And this is actually a very quick process. Just analyzes the data, smooths out the things that you guys have. And we're working on even making this a lot faster for you guys, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, there's a take. He's moving around, making sure everything's analyzed, and back. Awesome. So if he plays it back, you could actually see on the bottom of the screen, there's purple and green icons, which is where the data processing took place. It was like smoothing out a little bit, so you can see those contact points. The ground is a lot better. It's a lot smoother as he moves around on the back and forth. Let me make sure, because I want to make sure that you guys understand the software side of things. Now on the UI, and we mentioned a little bit beforehand, you have the ability to choose your bone structure. Can you go to that, Ari? Could you pause that take? Doesn't really matter. And go to capturing, to the capture window.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And then to the menu and to settings. And so what's really important here, right, when we're talking about the BVH broadcasting, Daniel's actually currently using a skeleton for Perception Neuron 32 and Perception Neuron Pro. So there's a lot of users, right, existing users who have been using, our older system and may want to upgrade or transition to Perception Neuron Studio. We've actually updated, and that's what we're talking about. We've updated the skeleton on Studio. So correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, there's actually an extra bone on the back that we have.
There's an extra bone on the neck side that helps the definition on the movement.
When you're bending down, right?
Yeah.
So again, when we're talking about ourselves being, we're improving the quality of that skeletal model, the algorithm, the human IK, and I do think we're probably one of the top ones at creating that. When you're using the skeletal model, you actually have the ability to still, so you don't lose anything that you've been working with already. You can still choose to work with the old skeletal model, or you can start working with the new one. And updating this actually isn't very long. That process is actually, I think it's a one step to just update the skeletal model for any existing projects that you guys are on. I think that's that on this. I just really wanted to cover that so you guys knew that there's two skeletal models. So in case there's anything that you're using on your current projects and then switching over to Studio and you notice that something's not working, you could always adjust that.
Somebody was asking real quick about why we make copies and things like that. Actually, didn't we discuss this with the team that's going to be included in the future? Because we're updating this software about every 30 days or so, every month.
Roughly, yeah.
So there's a couple. We already have a list of requests from them, and we've asked them, like, for the processing and things like that, that the system will automatically make copies, so you'll never lose your original. So the system will make a copy of it, and you'll have version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
yeah.
So FYI, like things like that are things that we get feedback from people, and that we transfer back to our R&D team and says, hey, can you automate this process, for example? So we do listen to everybody that gives us good ideas, and even people that give us bad ideas.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, very good. So yeah, definitely the copy thing is important. Just currently at the moment, in case you want to make sure that your original file is there, just make a copy so you don't lose that to the process data. I think other than that, because I think that's really important, knowing the skeleton in terms of what you guys are doing, the broadcasting settings. No, I think we're going to get more in depth with some of the functionality here on the UI, because some of this is actually going to come into play when we're talking about the hybrid capabilities and the integration with the hybrid trackers and camera tracking and all these different things. This UI is actually going to have all these different capabilities. And again, that's why it's important that us as a company have swapped over to to using these dongles, because it's given us the ability to be flexible for adding things on for you guys, right? For the benefit of all our users. So we think that that's going to be really good for everyone. I think finally on this, since Ari had processed the take, if you mind walking us through what the export process looks like and what options you guys have.
When we're exporting a take, first thing you want to do is go ahead and open up the take. We go to editing. So here we have the take that we just recorded, and then we did data processing on it. And for exporting it, it's simple as this button right here. And when we're looking at our different features, you can choose which skeletal system you want to export. So this is dependent on your animation rig, whether you want to go with new Perception Neuron Studio system or the Perception Neuron Classic. You can automatically insert a T-pose, and then it's a matter of choosing your file path. Our export options, you can do BVH, FBX, or biped BVH. So if we just do a standard BVH export, there you go.
So very simple. And so that goes, just to give you an idea, Daniel, that goes to the directory that you name, right? So if you guys have a folder for motion files, that's where it's going to end up, both your BVH file or your FBX, depending on how you guys are exporting, right? So he's got it here on the directory under the Documents tab. So that's important for you guys to know when you guys are doing that.
And the really cool thing about this software is that with the BVH exports, you can automatically insert a T-pose at the head frame and at the tail frame. This is going to be a great benefit to your animators as they're taking your data and moving it through the pipeline.
Hey, Ari, real quick question. What's the rotation?
Oh,
yeah. It's
right here?
X, Y, Z, Y, Z, X, and everything.
Right, so this has to do with the bone rotation on your skeletal system. Most of the time, 95% of the time, you're going to be wanting to use Y, X, Z. When you change these rotations, it's all dependent on what software or what program your data is going to be going into. So some applications are different, but with a lot of these, you kind of have to do an export and then test it in your pipeline to make sure that the skeleton is functioning properly.
You guys want to go to the slides now and show the result?
Yeah, I think Ari can take control. Just take a look at what the results of some of these are. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ari, you can take control. Do you have the slides ready to go?
No. Do you have them up on your screen?
Okay. Let me stop my share screen, and Alex, you can take control.
So I have one. So yeah, I can show you guys kind of. This is actually what data processing. I'm going to show you what a data processing looks like. It's done. So let me share this. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So just so you guys give you back a heads up of what we've done right so far, right? So we did through step one, right? Getting started, connecting the USB through the connecting the transceiver via USB, as well as connecting additional transceivers via PoE, right? Changing the frequency channel, right, to give you the best possible connection that you guys are going to be using. And you have the option to choose between 5 channels, doing an environmental check and the compass calibration. Then we moved on to step 2, which is the introduction to the UI, putting on the sensors, calibrating the suit, and then just basic software functionality. Then we just went through capturing, which is, what the settings are, what capturing looks like, recording a take, naming your files, making copies, things like that. And then finally reviewing that data. The data processing, if it's needed, right? A lot of times it may be perfect just as is, but if you do want to process the data, you can do that. And then we just talked over what the exporting looks like. And then finally, there's a take. It's actually on our YouTube channel. We have a performer amazing in LA named Orion, who's been gracious enough to do some stunts for us. Let me actually move this up to full screen so you guys can see. Perfect. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. So here's a take with Narayan. And so you could see actually live and process data in real time. And so I'm going to slow this down actually just a little bit and drag this to where I notice spots that are actually right away on the takes. So right over here, actually, after he lands, you could actually notice that the legs buckle a little bit. But on the process data, you actually don't get that at all, right? You get a solid foot contact. So even though the data was really great coming out live, adding that process data, adding that functionality actually improved the end result. So it's not something that's necessary for every take. It's just for, that little added like cherry on top that you guys get, right? It kind of cleans up the data without having to worry about doing these things manually afterwards. So I'm just going to play that back. And you guys can actually see the final result of these videos again on our YouTube channel. And you guys can see stuff. So hold on. Ari's actually asking to remote control my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and approve that.
So a couple of things that you'll see with this clip is, and data processing is really beneficial when it comes to extreme movements, because right now is the screen's actually on pause right now, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm trying to see where I'm at. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know where I'm at.
On the left-hand side, in the raw capture data, you'll see that he's not getting as much airtime as in the process data. And this is an example of the data processing taking the best of both accelerometers, both the low end and the high end, in order to calculate the actual trajectory of the performance. So in the live raw data, because it has less time to calculate, it's just taking the feed as it comes. You'll see that his body position is a lot lower than it is on the right-hand process data screen. Can you go ahead and press play on that for me?
Yes. Resume share. Let me make sure that could you guys see? Or
Well, it doesn't look to be playing back.
It's still paused.
Still paused. Apologies for that, guys. Let me make sure. Resume share. I don't know why it says not.
Give me 1 second. Okay, and is the video playing back?
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So let's just clip through this to show you. All right, again, this is what I was talking about with hang time, with the data processing. You see the character gets much higher clearance. And again, this is specifically highlighting extreme motion. So if you're going to be doing acrobatics, martial arts, wushu forms, anything like that, doing it live is probably, you probably won't do as much of this. However, when you process the data, you get much higher quality. So you can see here on the left in the raw data, his feet are kind of going through the floor, but our new algorithm puts his feet right on the floor with the process data. And this is all done with one click of a button.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. So it's really important, right? There's nothing additional that you guys have to do other than, just going through that data processing. Again, it's not for everything, right? We're highlighting really extreme movements here. In most case scenarios, the data that you get directly raw is all you guys are going to need, right? That's going to be good enough for live performances, live things that, either DJs or anything like that. This is the data that your clean data that you're going to be able to get raw. This is just going to be the data process is just going to be able to fix some of those errors that you guys potentially have, right? Just moves things out for you guys. And I think, unless there's anything else, because now's the time to fill that in, I think we could go to our Q&A section. In case there's any additional things that weren't answered throughout the broadcast, now's a good time to put those into the chat. And I think we could probably answer those for 5 minutes or so, before it gets too late for you guys. I know that 2 hours might be a lot of talking. So if there's nothing pending in the chat and nothing pending in the Q&A, let me just ask. Anything?
So the only thing that I think we might be able to address is somebody brought up asking about the alignment of the hands, saying that when they bring their hands together, they're either a little bit through each other by a couple inches, and they were wondering if they can adjust that.
Through the hands clipping, something like this, for example?
Yeah. So I told them that working on checking their calibration and adjusting their calibration a little.
Yes.
And also the body measurements.
Right. So body measurements is great when you're doing something like that. Or you can possibly do, again, because these are inertial sensors, and I'm going to back away a little bit. Oh, Daniel's going to go ahead and show. Perfect. I was going to kind of step back so you guys can see. If you overextend your hands a little bit, when you're doing the T-pose calibration, you might actually end up, bringing your hands cross a little bit versus maybe if you come in just slightly, if you overflex behind, you might get more clipping versus if you're doing something in.
I think the most important thing is to get the right body dimension.
Yeah.
I actually, Daniel, what dimension did you put on your body? 150?
160.
Okay,
160.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Because that makes a huge difference on how accurate that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then can you show it the body measurements and where to adjust that on the software?
Yeah,
Daniel?
so could you pull up your screen, Daniel? Yeah. And actually so on the body dimensions, we have the ability to select, you could do these things manually as well as templates that we offer for you guys to have. And then we have a guide to help you guys measure what you should be looking for if you're going to be adjusting things manually, shoulder width, upper arm, forearm, hip, things like that. So this is a nice visual guide to help you make these manual adjustments if you're going to be doing something like this.
Hey, actually, I noticed with this thing, it would be helpful if we asked the engineers to put a skeleton in there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Superimpose a skeleton into that image because we're actually measuring bones, and I think that's what the hip width is between the two places where you're what's it called, the hip joint? Yeah, the two hip joints, right? And that would be really helpful for people. I mean, a lot of the people that are using this are very technical, so I think that would be very good for them.
Okay. So
it would be helpful. I tried to follow these body dimensions the other day. And I think I overlapped in a couple places because I didn't have exact points that I was measuring from. Mm-hmm. And so, just being really precise on your measurements, but also making sure that the templates are really good. If you're going to adjust any body measurements, I would suggest creating a new profile. So that way you don't adjust any of the
preset ones.
Might be, the preset templates.
Well, and just for the record, because James is a stuntman, his body profile is pretty broken to begin with. So I can understand the measuring issue.
Do that.
But
Daniel's measurements probably very similar to what the standard template is, which is why his hand placement is really solid.
Yeah.
Actually, Alex is the one.
Just was.
I always see when Alex, and also when Jonas was using it too. They were very, very accurate. Jonas is another one of our performers. They had very, very good hand contact and everything.
Yeah.
On there, I think Daniel's actually a little bit more than 160. He's probably 165.
Roughly around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. So some questions. I see some in the chat coming in. Or we have access to slides. Yes, I think we can make actually even all our previous slides available for users and the presentation as well. I think we might just cut this video short a little bit towards the end because it's running close to 2 hours. But general information will be there as well as the slides so you guys can follow along. Okay, so then we have next one. That's from Joe Moriarty. So let me answer that. We answered that live. Global indicator meaning YXZ. So we have brought this up to the China team. So Daniel is hovering there over the U.
Right. What was that thing about the U up?
Yeah.
So argument XYZ and up and
up northeast is I believe what it is.
Correct. The challenge is that when you're using an inertial system that is based on knowing its direction with magnetic fields, it knows where north is, east, and up. So that's built into the UI. However, you can double click on this and it changes to what animators expect, which is Y up, Z forward, and X.
I didn't even know that. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Ari. Same here.
I didn't know you could do that.
Because I remember we brought this up, so that's great that they changed that.
Yeah, so
that's why we have these webinars, guys, is so that we all can learn together.
Yeah, so cool. So thank you, Anthony, for the question, because you've taught us something.
It was something that I talked to our China team quite extensively about, and they fixed it.
Okay, cool.
Did that answer his question?
Yeah, I think because he was asking about that position, so I think that's pretty much how to select that. If we didn't, let us know.
Yeah, so if I change and rotate, or actually here, let's go ahead and do a top down.
Sorry.
Yeah, now you have X, Y, Z.
So now this tells you what direction the character is facing and moving, and that's the transition that'll happen when you export this animation and move it into third-party software like Maya, Motion Builder, Unreal, Unity.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Ari. So let's see. Does the system only export skeleton data? This is from Jeffrey Price. Does the system only export skeleton data, or is there any marker point data available? So currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, currently we're only doing skeletal data, although marker point data is something that we've both been requested for in the past, and it's something that we brought up to the engineering team. So I think it is actually something that is coming up in a future firmware update. Correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, on that.
That'll be when we do the hybrid tracking.
Yeah, I don't. With pure inertia, we can't do point data because we are determining the movement of the bone, not the actual point. So you might have the sensor up, lower, or higher on the bone itself, but it's still looking at the movement of that bone. So you wouldn't be able to tell where that sensor is in that space, except with optical. So no, we don't do marker point data unless you have hybrid, at which point you do have that, but that's another story.
Right. With inertial systems, the way that it's able to determine the skeletal movement is in relation to all of the sensors and where they're placed on the body, which is why sensor placement is so important. Because if a sensor isn't placed properly, then it's going to give you the wrong rotation on a joint or a bone. So all the sensors, they talk to each other based on their physical location, and that's what creates the skeleton.
Perfect.
And this last question, double-jointed people.
Any tips for performers that are double-jointed?
Post-processing animation? No, with our algorithm, it knows the general limits of what a human skeleton should do. When you start moving a sensor in a direction that it's not used to doing, you're going to get really, really interesting results. Not necessarily the exact results of the performer.
Yeah, I think what's important, and correct me if I'm wrong here on this rock, but the most important thing is that the performer, if someone is double jointed, that they should calibrate in their normal stance, like how they normally stand up. And this is going to be a really bad example of this, but I'm going to take my legs and so you guys can kind of see, like, I don't know if you can, this is really weird, but like creepy. I have really like my legs are
hairy.
Other than hairy, right? I have almost like T-Rex legs. Right. So
they bend.
Avatar. He's like Avatar.
I'm like Avatar, right? So I calibrate like this. I should not calibrate in a normal stance. I should calibrate the way that I normally stand. Because that's going to give me the most accurate results. So as weird as that was probably for you guys to see, the important thing is that whoever's doing the capture records the way that they would normally stand.
But I think what Stephanie means by that is someone like a contortionist. Like have we ever mocapped a contortionist? Like, those when you see the circus people that like can bend like a U.
Well, like, James,
James can do that, right?
No.
James, you remember when we had Alex Bankier and his girlfriend at the studio? Yeah. The challenge wasn't necessarily capturing the contortionist body position. It was the fact that in order to contort, they had to roll around and move on the ground with connections other than their hands and feet. They were rolling on their back,
Right.
getting on their knees in order to contort in those positions. And that was very, very challenging to capture.
Yeah, because the contact point solutions that we have.
Well, I also think if somebody's doing like what's that called? Like when you bend backwards and then you put your hands on the ground next to your feet, so it's like a
pretzel thing,
like a back
yeah, like
bend?
a pretzel, like you usually see like
An arch, a back arch.
an arch, yeah, back arch.
Daniel, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think you might have a problem. You might just have a problem because all your sensors on the back are getting all scrunched together, right? Because you have the two shoulder ones and the
it would be hard to capture a lot of that because for some of that flexibility, you need to be either rolling around the ground, which is going to interfere with the sensor data because they're going to be getting bumped around or turned off.
We should still check that. I mean, we've had the dancer from Doc was doing some pretty crazy contortion hanging from
the wires and stuff.
The wires.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's
necessarily out of the realm of possibility.
Like if you're double jointed, those are people that can like flip their arms upside down. Like
those people that go like
or roll their arm around and
Daniel, do me a favor. Share your axis. Share your computer screen showing axis, and then just pop off your forearm sensor and start rotating it around. So when I did a demo at Cal Arts, they were very, very interested in having multiple people puppeteering the skeleton. So we had 4 people wearing one suit. One person was wearing body harness. Somebody else had the headband on. We had somebody with the right arm, left arm, and with the legs. So,
dropped it.
So the suit has various capabilities when it comes to performance and performance art. If you're looking to do something other than actually capturing your skeletal data, you can use the suit to drive different animated characters or segments of characters. But at its core, it's designed to most accurately capture the representation of the performer's skeleton.
Hey, real quick, I think, and then you can probably close it because it's been really long, but someone's asking if we can just go real quick over how to change the frequency on the sensors.
That should not be a problem.
You can do it right there. Daniel.
Yeah.
You put the sensors to sleep mode.
Yeah, so Daniel's doing it right now. Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Daniel.
You have no audio.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I put the transceivers to sleep. I put everything to sleep. What I'm going to do is disconnect. Sorry?
The sensors.
The transceiver. The transceiver is still
right.
on.
So I'm going to disconnect the transceiver from the PoE switch, and I'm going to hook up a USB cable connected from the computer to the transceiver.
Was it transceiver change or was it sensor change?
They're asking how to change the sensors, but that's
you have to do both.
You have to do both anyway. So
and you can only do the transceiver when it's connected via USB.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm doing the transceivers. Is that okay?
No, the sensors they want. You can do it. They're on your body right now, so it's easy.
Right. So what I need to do right now is just go into. I have the transceiver connected. Go to the main menu. Go to frequency setting. Right now, my transceiver is on the green channel. I'm going to click on connect to connect to my sensors as they are sleep mode. As soon as I click connect, I believe that, my apologies, I think the sensors turned off there.
This is actually a safety precaution. So when you are going to change the frequency on your sensors, the transceiver broadcasts to everything on that current channel to turn off. And it does that as a safety feature if you have multiple suits turned on in the same area. So when we went to go change the frequency, the transceiver said, shut everything on this frequency down. And now he's having to manually power everything up to choose exactly which sensors he wants to change.
You can see now they're all lit up on the little avatar now on the screen. and now change to blue, for example, to whatever channel 2 is. Switch.
So first, it's going to change the transceiver to channel 2, and then it's going to broadcast to change all of the sensors to channel 2, and it's going to turn them blue.
It's doing it all in one process, though, right, Ari? It's
Correct.
In this case, it's just like it's a one-stop. So once it's done, everything will be turned to blue once the little icon at the top there.
Yeah, and that's everything.
Yeah.
And if you need to set multiple transceivers to one channel, you do the same process, except you don't turn on the sensors. You just leave them the color that they are, and you set the transceiver to the color of your sensors.
Yeah, you don't have to touch. Yeah, you don't have to touch the sensors if you want to add more transceivers. You just add more transceivers.
I think that answers Ian's question, hopefully. But it's pretty easy. It's just you have to follow the process, because we've actually been in situations where we changed we were using multiple suits at the same time for an event, and we didn't change one, but we changed the other, and we had 2 people using it. So you just have to get your eggs in a row.
Mm-hmm.
The expression. I mean, get your ducks in a row. Sorry, to make sure that you do everything without I forgot the changes. Now I've got to switch back the transceiver and then go do it again.
Yes, that's a good thing. So Daniel's doing a final calibration. He was on the blue channel, and now we can see that's him operating.
Yeah.
Forgot to turn on the glove.
It's okay. You still have.
So that's a perfect example now. So in order to turn the gloves to the blue channel, he will have to turn off his whole suit, then switch back his transceiver back to the green channel. That will allow him to connect to the gloves, and then do the process again to switch back.
Yeah.
But we'll cover that in any tech support emails that you send us after you've purchased one of the studio kits.
Yes. Perfect. I think with that, thank you guys for joining us. I know that this webinar was a little bit longer than some of our previous ones, but there's a lot of information here, a lot of really important information, just because it's so new, and even the way that it's going through, we're learning as much as about Studio as you guys are at the same time. And really it's been fun to use and put to the test on the field. And we hope as you guys start using it more, you guys send us some feedback. Something that I failed to mention at the beginning, I know we don't have as many people as we did beforehand, but for those of you that are existing PN Pro users, you have the ability to upgrade to Studio. We have a buyback program. And if you're someone who's joining us from a competitor, someone who's familiar with Xsense or owns a Roku, we also have a competitor upgrade for you guys. So in case you guys are interested in making the transition to the Perception Neuron family, or upgrading, you guys have the ability to do that. So other than that, I bid you guys adieu. I don't know if my colleagues.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Stay safe.
Thanks for being with us, guys.
Thank you. See you guys on Friday. Friday is Motion Builder in Maya, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, Motion Builder Maya.
Yeah, and we have just a quick one. We have a couple of interesting things coming down the line with some of our partners. So stay tuned.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe out there.